anyways. Everybody has been very generous. We've gone a little bit over the time. Mr. Ciscomani, you are recognized.
Gosh, the only thing keeping everybody here is the new guy. Why don't I just go right to it real quick here? I just came back from Israel on Monday. An amazing once in a, just a great opportunity in so many ways. You can't summarize it in just even an hour conversation, even less than just a few minutes. So you can imagine all that I learned and the sites that I visited. One of the things that were discussed, obviously, is the aid to the war zone on the Gaza Strip side of things. So when we look at the aid that is not reaching the civilian population there, what have you seen as the reason for that? Where is it being stopped? Is any of this going to actually part of the Hamas militia in terms of intercepting this? I want to learn more about, from your perspective, what's happening there.
Thank you so much. Well, I think, for starters, in the wake of October 7th and the horrific attacks and kidnappings, there was a great reluctance on the part of the Israeli government to allow significant amounts of food and dual-use items like fuel, which is necessary for food to get delivered. Gradually, over the last 6 months, things have opened up. President Biden's been very engaged with Prime Minister Netanyahu, but not enough food is being allowed to cross. And that's a combination of the number of hours that people were keeping at various checkpoints, initially just too few points of entry, restrictions on items, and an elaborate, again, understandably, a lot of vigilance after October 7th about anything that would go in, but an elaborate scanning process that slowed things down. Then on the other side, as the food diminished, because prior to October 7th, as you've probably heard, about 500 trucks, commercial and humanitarian trucks, were going into Gaza each day. When that plummeted initially to zero and then gradually got back up, and in the pause, went up fairly substantially, but then went back down. And, even as recently as a month ago, at times was, under 150 trucks, combined with all the destruction of the markets and the granaries and the arable land, and people's own personal stockpiles. That wasn't making up, we weren't getting close to that 500 truck number. This week, for the first time, more than 400 trucks are going in. That's the first time we've ever hit numbers like that. But we have a ton of catch up to do. And if we are to catch up, it is absolutely essential that the flour that is still stuck in or at least was when I last looked, in Ashdod port, that make its way into Gaza, that there be a crossing into the north from Eretz that for a long time the government of Israel was reluctant to open, again, in light of what had happened, but that had the effect, again, limiting what can go in, and that a very substantial corridor as well be built from Jordan, where we think we can help build a kind of humanitarian hub where there is better prioritization of items, especially food and medical items, so that the right items go in.
Is there any speculation, or have you seen this happen, that Hamas is actually the one organizing, distributing, or managing where this aid goes? Because that's a high concern that I have, that I heard over and over again as I was in Israel, of that notion of Hamas controlling some of this and them actually starving their own people on this. That's a high concern for me, of where this aid and how it's not making it there. And if I look at Hamas's history of how they treat their own people, that would have been in line with everything else that they've done to the Palestinians. So in terms of the aid going to civilians and women and children, that's the intended purpose of that, has Hamas been intercepting or involved in any kind of that activity?
So I'd say three things. First, Hamas doesn't care about its people. Hamas has used its people as human shields. Yeah. We have every reason to be vigilant about Hamas and how it would act in these circumstances. I do think Hamas fighters are very much on the run and not in the position that they might be to organize some systematic scheme in light of the war. But the second thing I'd say is just we have a good sense, as does Israel, about what is going in and how much is going in. And we have a good sense of how much is needed. And there is a huge gap between what is needed and what is actually crossing the border from Israel into the Gaza Strip. So So and the third thing I would say is that we do not have reports, and we're not just working willy-nilly with new partners. We're drawing on established relationships with the World Food Program, with UNICEF, with Save the Children, with the International Medical Corps, and we are not getting those reports of Hamas-directed diversion or absconding. There have been lootings, when particularly because the shortages are so great in the north, it's been very hard for some of the convoys even to move through civilians who are so desperate. They're so afraid that the convoy is going to be the last one that they see, that they, are grabbing what they can and stopping trucks in harm's way. We are hopeful if we can continue to get the number of trucks way up even beyond where we are this week, that you will start to see more of a regularization. But that also requires aid workers and civilians being safe to access humanitarian supplies. So that also requires a much better deconfliction system than the one that has been in place so far. But we're happy to go into the details of what we know and then also where our information gaps are. But we're in very close touch with COGAT and with the IDF to hear from them. When if they have reports of things that are concerning them, they come right to the United States, given that we are one of the largest providers.
Thank you. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you.